Developer log, stardate 07102018. We've made a lot of progress since the last time we checked in. This is the current state of the game. You can kind of see, well, you can see quite a few of the graphics have changed. These units look different. We've got like a timer in here. Let me just run the game to show it to you real quick. Here it is. Your friendly units are actually this blue color, and as you'll see, the enemy units are around here somewhere. There's one. There are some sound effects. I'm going to mute those because they are the fastest, quickest thing I have ever slapped together, and they're not very good, so mute them. You can also see these units are grouping together a little bit more now. I adjusted their hitboxes so that they will actually like have a more coherent group, which is quite nice. So I'm just going to keep attacking these things, attacking. Most of this level hasn't changed that much since last week when we last checked in. This overall level like design is pretty similar to how it was, except for the grouping and maybe a few more units here and there. So we'll just keep playing through this. At the end of the level, you'll see we have made some pretty significant changes. So I want to make it through this and show it to you. See if I can take down this group now. This is a big group. I don't know that I have the resources to do this, but I'm going to give it a shot. Come on, guys. We still need to change this UI so that they don't fade out when they're getting hurt, because it makes it really hard to tell how much progress you've made. Haha, I did beat the group though. You can see I've got that timer ticking down. It says boss time, but we don't actually have a boss yet. So right now this is just time until the end of the level. Eventually, and actually this is on the agenda for this next week, eventually we are planning on actually having kind of a mini boss at the end of this level. Once this timer hits 0, you should be able to find and assimilate units until the timer hits 0, and then when it hits 0, there'll be a mini boss. So now, as you can see, this is all new since last time. We've added a unit of currency, which is called scrap. You gain some scrap for destroying machines, so any of your friendly units, when they die, they give you some scrap. So you can see we've gained 360 scrap just from units dying. But you can earn a lot more scrap at the end of these levels, where you can sell off any of the units that you have assimilated over the entirety of the level. So you can see we've got these 3 different types of units worth differing amounts of scrap. The knights are worth 400, the wheeled guard is worth 1200, little guys are worth 200 each, so I'm going to sell off a few of these guys. You can see that adds up pretty fast. We've already got 1500 scrap. I'm going to sell off all of those, and then once you're happy with the number of units you have left, you're going to do continue, and it jumps you into the next level. So here we go. These enemies are really kind of hard to see right now. They kind of blend in with the background, but that's something we're still working on. So the mini boss is going to be the big push for this next week. We're pretty excited about what that is going to do for the game, putting kind of little mini bosses at the end of each level. We think it's going to have a pretty big effect on how each of these levels play. It's not going to be, it's going to really help the balance of things and make it feel more rewarding when you actually beat a level, rather than just, oh, I've killed all the things, so I can move on now. We want it to be kind of a hectic time, watching this timer count down and knowing that you have to get as many of these units as you can before the timer ends. And 120 seconds is a little short, I'm finding. That timer is a new addition, so I'm still working on trying to figure out what is the appropriate time. That feels really quick though. So each of these levels might actually get longer as we continue going, because I was only able to acquire 8 of these guys, 9 of these guys, which is not enough. Definitely not going to be enough for the end of the level boss. So yeah, the store is kind of a big thing. There's nothing you can buy yet. This is going to be a place where you can buy special types of units, and they're probably going to be super expensive. So you're going to have to sell a lot of these little grunt units to save up for the big the big beefy units, you're going to need a lot of scrap. So it's going to be this interesting like risk reward where you try to sell off as many units as you can while not completely crippling yourself for the next level. And we're also going to make it pretty easy to come back if you lose one of these levels. If your entire army is destroyed, then you'll just get to essentially purchase some of these units to restart the level with, is kind of how we have it working right now. Or you're going to have just a base army that you are able to take back in with you. So hopefully there won't be too much grinding. We don't want it to be too grindy of a game. We want it to be fun and rewarding, but also for there to be a nice risk-reward proposition here, where the more units you sell, the stronger you could get in the future. So that's the idea, guys. I think that's the majority of the functionality that's been adding since the last time I showed this off. There's a lot going on in here now, and the bigger this game gets, the harder it is for me to organize all this stuff. Now we've got like several different menus, a bunch of different menu code. We've got a store where you can sell and buy things. That's kind of what these are. I was actually really happy with the way that store is working out. I can show you a little bit about what's going on there if we open this menu. Everything's hidden right now, but if I toggle this back on, you can see here's our store. And it has these two unit lists, which is a built-in type, I think it's unit list, item list. It's an item list. It's a built-in thing with Godot, and it makes it super easy to create this sort of interface, which I really appreciate. I'm glad I didn't have to build this whole thing by myself. But the sell list, what we did here is we've got a item selected event that we're watching for. So any one of those items, we will trigger this sell unit function. The sell unit grabs the index of whatever it is in that list, figures out what that unit is based on information that we stored earlier, and then all of that is passed up along the chain to the game object, where the game object adds up your scrap, gives you your new scrap, and all that stuff. So I've also got a little test thing in here, which this is something that I want to do more often, is provide like a test function to these things for really quick, easy testing. Because let me show you what I can do. I can come in this menu, and I can call this test function and switch this to show, and then immediately when I launch the game, I've got all of this UI here that I can test. So it's not, I mean, it's a little buggy. It's gonna crash when I do this probably, or it's just not gonna work. But it gives me a really quick, easy way to test this UI. So this is an idea that I'm really just starting to figure out how to do, kind of building in testing without having like a big testing framework. I don't know of any big testing frameworks for Godot. That might be an interesting thing to look into at some point. But one useful thing that I've discovered here is to include a test function to help you really quickly test and debug these different pieces of your game that you're building. In fact, we could do the same thing here if we did a test function. Then we could do show and toss this in here. And then instead of doing this, we just call test. And then that gives us this whole interface that we could test. So yeah, that's one idea that I've been enjoying lately, enjoying figuring out. What else can I show you? That was the menu. We also have a heads-up display, the HUD, which is extremely simple. But there's one thing I discovered with this, which is super basic, but I didn't know it until this week, is there is this center container object within Godot that anything you put in there, it will just center. So I put a label inside the center container, and when I launch the game, I always know that this here is always centered. Another thing I did is now it scales properly. It doesn't actually, like, the whole game scales when you do this stuff. And I think this might be a little bit buggy still. I feel like there are some things that some places where it breaks when I scale like this. So I might still have to do some debugging here, but it's really nice to have this scaling functionality, and that was also surprisingly easy in project settings. If you go to Window, yeah, I just changed the mode to 2D and aspect to keep, and that was all I had to do, which is pretty cool. I don't know what the rest of these do. I think 2D is probably right. I wonder what expand does. Let's see what expand looks like. Does expand change anything? Oh, okay. Yes, that's kind of the functionality I had before. You can see, yeah, it kind of breaks the game. You kind of need the, you don't necessarily need the same aspect ratio, but I think I will probably force it to keep a similar aspect ratio. I still need to, that's funny, this center container isn't centered anymore when you do this. So that's not a golden ticket apparently. Yeah, so those are some of the things I learned this week, guys, on Godot. I'm going to change this back before I forget. Keep the aspect ratio, shrink, leave that at 1. I really need to figure out more about these project settings. Another thing I've been trying to do is where is it that I did this? In audio, for one thing, I added the sound effects, setting, and Godot allows you to do this, add custom settings and access them based on the project settings type or class, I guess, project, this guy here, where you can get a certain setting, but I haven't had a whole lot of luck with this. I'm not sure where in the code I put that project setting, the sound effect. It's probably in the base unit here, project. No, it's not. So anyway, I've been trying to use this. I guess there's an example in here, or has feature or get setting. Both of these things, get setting and has feature, neither one seems to be working very well for me. And I'm not sure why. According to the documentation, this should work, but it really does not. So this has feature has to do with the exports, and I'm trying to read like if it's an exported build. So these are things that I don't know how to do. I'm still working on this. I will check back in future weeks once I have this figured out and let you guys know how I've solved it. If you guys have any ideas why this has feature and get setting, why they seem inconsistent, don't always seem to work very well, then I would be more than happy to hear from you at any of the social media things that are down in the description. Until then, I think that's probably a wrap. You've seen everything that I've done in the last week. Next big thing is going to be adding the boss. So adding a boss to each one of these levels is going to take a fair amount of work, and I kind of want to do like a scripted camera movement, kind of a cutscene sort of thing for each of these mini bosses to make it really like sell the impact of, this is a tougher character. It's not just a regular character. So it's going to require a lot of modifications to the code, a lot of work. So it's going to take time, but hopefully I'll have something in that vein to show you guys next week. And yeah, we're looking forward to that. We've also mapped out all of our work for the next, I don't know how many months, like 3 months, to try and get this game done as quickly as possible. So yeah, we're excited about it. We think it's going to be good. And I hope you guys stick around with us and watch as we continue to get destroyed by our own game, which is what's happening here. I am just in big trouble. Dead. I lost. Well, guys, that seems like a good enough spot to stop as any. Check back next week, and hopefully we'll have some bosses to show you. Guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.